Right now on Morning News Now, making his case, President Trump defending his policies in a marathon State of the Union address, the first of his second term and the longest in American history.
After just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before. Our nation is back, bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before.
In his 1 hour, 47-minute speech, the president declaring what he called a turnaround for the ages, even as polling shows declining approval rates over the economy and immigration. Now, Democrats pushing back against the president's claims. We're in Washington with highlights and reaction. Also, an emotional plea from our NBC News colleague Savannah Guthrie in the search for her mom, Nancy. The Guthrie family now offering a new $1 million reward for her return more than 3 weeks after she disappeared. This is local and federal investigators work to identify this man seen at Nancy's Arizona home the day she disappeared. We will take you to Tucson for the latest in the case. Plus, say it ain't snow. This morning, another round of winter weather taking aim at the Northeast, which is still digging out from that monster storm. Angie is back tracking the conditions, plus a cold snap for parts of the South. And taking it to heart, researchers sounding the alarm on the rising rates of heart disease among women. We're going to look at the data and what doctors want you to know. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off. We begin this hour with President Trump's State of the Union address. The president defended his administration's economic policies and immigration enforcement operations during last night's address, claiming he was ushering in what he calls a golden age of America over the past year. Mr. Trump also made several false or misleading claims throughout the night on issues like crime and the economy. President Trump's speech grew contentious as the night went on. He condemned the previous administration and issued harsh attacks on Democrats, calling them crazy and blaming them for the country's problems. It was the longest State of the Union address in history, lasting nearly 2 hours. Here are some of the key moments.
When I last spoke in this chamber 12 months ago, I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels, a wide open border, horrendous recruitment for military and police, rampant crime at home, and wars and chaos all over the world. But tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before and a turnaround for the ages. And the annual cost of a typical new mortgage is down almost $5,000 just since I took office. 1 year. The last administration got less than $1 trillion in new investment in the United States. And when I say less, substantially less. In 12 months, I secured commitments for more than $18 trillion pouring in from all over the globe. Despite the disappointing ruling, these powerful country saving, it's saving our country, the kind of money we're taking in, peace protecting. Many of the wars I settled was because of the threat of tariffs. And as time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country. These people are crazy, I'm telling you. They're crazy. We're lucky we have a country. With people like this, Democrats are destroying our country, but we've stopped it just in the nick of time. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon.
We have presidential historian Tevi Choi standing by with reaction and analysis of the president's speech. We begin in Washington, though, with White House correspondent Monica Alba and Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona. Good morning to both of you. Mel, I know you had a long night last night. Let's start with you.
Yes.
We just heard some key moments from President Trump's remarks. I know you were also probably keeping an eye on some members of Congress. Some Democrats kept quiet, others loudly sparring with the president, as we just saw. But when it came to the policy, what issues did he spend the most time focusing on in what was a record-long address?
Yeah, well, Joe, it's really hard to pinpoint one subject because it really was a wide-ranging speech. He talked about everything from the economy and tariffs to immigration and Iran. But overall, he certainly spent more time on domestic issues than foreign policy issues. And he also spent more time talking about his accomplishments and highlighting the stories from some of the guests in the crowd than he did actually laying out an agenda for if Republicans get another 2 years of unified government. Now, he did have a couple of asks for Congress. He did ask them to pass his health care plan, which he introduced in January. It's very late on details. It's been collecting dust ever since. He also asked them to pass a congressional stock trading ban, as well as a voter ID bill, both of which Republicans have already trying to been passed and have been really struggling to get it over the finish line. And he did at least outline one initiative to try to bring down the cost of living. And that's an agreement with tech companies that they will pay electricity costs in communities where they're building AI data centers. But notably, Trump did not ask Republicans in Congress to step in and codify his tariffs, which is notable given the recent Supreme Court ruling where they struck down his use of at least one of the laws to implement some of the tariffs. And while he did criticize that ruling during the speech, he did hold back from launching any personal attacks against the justices. He also shook their hands prior to going up to the podium, much to the relief of many Republicans, Joe.
So, Monica, let's bring you in here. It comes at a pivotal time for President Trump. He touted the economy, typically a strength for him, but recent polling shows many Americans are dissatisfied with how he's handling it. So how did his remarks differ from just the reality of the state of the economy right now? I mean, we know he threw out some numbers. Some were false, some were misleading or need more context. We just heard the $18 trillion in new investments number. Our fact checkers outright said that number is false. The number is much lower. Help us out here.
Exactly. I think that is really important to point out, Joe. The biggest thing here is that a lot of the numbers that the president discussed last night, especially when it comes to the economy, need context, need added information to really make sense when he's talking about this record turnaround. And he's really trying to project that this was something that he inherited that was terrible, he argued 12 months ago, but that his administration has been able to really drive down core inflation to the lowest level in more than 5 years. Yes, it is true that inflation has certainly eased since he's returned to the White House, according to some metrics, but the underlying inflation points to a real sticky price pressure. And we have seen that time and time again. And this is something that really becomes a little bit of a disconnect for the president because he talks about the economy and some economic indicators in a certain way that just don't line up with how people say they actually feel, what their wallets are actually telling them versus what the president of the United States said last night. He did tout these large numbers on investment, on job creation. And again, he talks about this in a rosier picture than what is actually happening. And this is something that you have seen the president talk about and do repeatedly. And again, what I think is so complicated and interesting here is that this is the message that Republicans now need to take on the road ahead of the midterms. And we'll see if people end up really buying it.
And one of the big questions is whether there was sort of a vision for the future, new policies, new plans that they can take with them. We didn't hear a lot of new policies, at least in this speech, a lot of defending what's happened in the last year. Melanie, we did hear some direct criticism of the president last night in the Democratic rebuttal. That came from Virginia's new governor, Abigail Spanberger. She was just elected a few months ago. She was pretty laser focused on the economy, on affordability in her campaign. Walk us through her comments.
Well, it was very similar to how she launched her campaign for governor. Last night, her rebuttal really focused on Trump's handling of the economy, as well as his aggressive approach to immigration. And she really opened the speech by asking Americans whether they feel like their core needs are being met. And then she went on to ask whether Americans feel like they're being kept safe, both here and abroad. Let's take a listen to some of those moments.
But as the president spoke of his perceived successes tonight, he continues to cede economic power and technological strength to Russia, bow down to China, bow down to a Russian dictator, and make plans for war with Iran. Here's the truth. Over the last year, through DOJ, mass firings, and the appointment of deeply unserious people to our nation's most serious positions, our president has endangered the long and storied history of the United States of America being a force for good. So I'll ask again, is the president working to keep Americans safe, both at home and abroad? We all know the answer is no.
And Spanberger not only won the governor's mansion by focus on affordability, but she also flipped a red seat to blue when she ran for Congress. So she's someone that can appeal to the middle, to moderates, and that's really why Democrats view her as a model for how they can win back power in November.
Monica, we should note Mr. Trump is the reality TV show president, so this was a speech filled with scripted moments with a focus on his guests, some of whom were the victims of violence and crime. Others are people who received bipartisan applause. What were some of the biggest moments beyond the podium?
Yeah, certainly. I think actually the president incorporated more of these sort of surprises and acknowledgments of the people in the gallery more than ever. He also honored veterans. He awarded medals of honor, congressional medals of freedom in a very touching moment, acknowledging this 100-year-old veteran and acknowledging the pilot who was involved in the capture of Nicolas Maduro earlier this year. So you had those moments where there was a bipartisan applause and recognition. You also had the president acknowledging Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated last year. She was there as one of the president's guests. And also the parents of Sarah Beckstrom, who is the National Guard member who was shot and killed late last year in Washington, D.C., when she was patrolling the streets there. So you had those moments, in addition to the president revealing to a niece of a man who was held in a Venezuelan prison that the U.S. had helped to work to secure his release. And then he brought him into the chamber to have, again, a touching moment, emotional moment there. And then finally, Joe, you had members of the U.S. men's hockey team fresh off their gold medal winning victory over Canada in the Milan Winter Olympics. There wasn't enough room for them to actually sit and be in attendance throughout the entire speech. So they had their own moment to come out, wave, show off their medals there. And that, again, was also a moment where both Republicans and Democrats cheered pretty heavily.
All right, Monica and Mel, a lot to cover this morning. Appreciate you both walking us through it. For more reaction on this, let's bring in Tevi Troy, who's a presidential historian and senior fellow at the Ronald Reagan Institute. Tevi, good to have you with us. I mean, overall, this was not a speech heavy on policy, certainly not many new policies mentioned. It was heavy on those moments, the guests, the characters, the surprises. So with that in mind, how do you think the president did last night? How do you think it stacks up to his past speeches and perhaps more traditional State of the Union addresses?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Look, a typical presidential State of the Union address is a laundry list of policies with some heroes sprinkled in. This was a laundry list of heroes with some policies sprinkled in. So it was a very different type of mix in terms of what he was showing to the American people. And it's typical with his background as a showman, someone who likes spectacle. And many of those moments, as Monica said, are unifying moments. Everybody has to cheer for the men's hockey team or for the World War II veteran or for that hero in the Venezuela raid. So there are a lot of moments that he set up that everybody would cheer for. But then he also sets up certain moments that the Democrats aren't going to cheer for, and then he blasted them for it in moments that I thought were kind of partisan. He calls them crazy. He says they should be ashamed of themselves. So it's kind of this mix of trying to create unifying moments while at the same time establishing these partisan differences.
Yeah, no doubt. Between the unifying moments, you could feel the tension even just watching on television. We heard from our correspondents, President Trump addressed a range of issues from national security to the economy. He did make several misleading or outright false claims throughout the address. Any comments or moments that stood out to you? I mean, you know very well, politicians don't always have a strong relationship with the truth, but when so many details in a speech do need to be checked, what's the impact of that? Or are we numb to it now?
Yeah, look, the idea that a president wants to, what a president wants to push is the economy. He wants to tout the economy, make the economy look good. And when the economy is working well, if the Americans feel it, it's good and it works. And if Americans don't feel it, it's not going to work no matter how many statistics you cite. So it really comes down to what the American people are feeling. When Ronald Reagan talks about morning in America and he touted the economic success of his administration, by that time, the economy had turned around and the people were feeling it. But you've had many instances in history where presidents were trying to talk up the economy, going all the way back to Herbert Hoover in the Great Depression, and that just didn't work.
Tevi, on the Democratic side, some lawmakers just didn't attend last night's address. A few actually heckled the president. There was the more traditional formal rebuttal as well, as we heard there from Governor Spanberger. What did you take away from those various responses last night? I mean, does history tell us if you're in the opposition party, especially during a midterm, there is a best way to respond?
Yeah, I'm an institutionalist. I like this whole idea of everybody coming together, the Supreme Court and the Senate and the House, members of both parties, the cabinet, and being there for the president's address to celebrate our way of life. You don't have to celebrate the president, but you have to celebrate our system. And so I don't like the spectacle of people waving signs or yelling at the president. And it also doesn't usually turn out well for them because the president's got the big mic, he's got the lights, and everything's focused on him. At the same time, the president has an obligation not to stick it in their eyes as well. I know that Leader Jeffries told his members to sit on their hands, not to make a big stink about things. And for the most part, they did, although, as you showed, Ilhan Omar and some of her colleagues were doing that. But if you want to have everybody come together in that moment, you really need both sides to say, okay, there are certain modes of behavior that we're going to stick by.
Tevi Troy, thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate your perspective.
Thanks for having me.
As the search for Nancy Guthrie enters day 25, a senior law enforcement official tells NBC News that the FBI tip line is receiving hundreds of new calls. That comes after the family announced a $1 million reward for Nancy's recovery. Nancy, the mother of our NBC News colleague Savannah Guthrie, was abducted from her home in Tucson 3.5 weeks ago. Savannah revealed the new reward in a video that she posted on Instagram yesterday. She said the family is still hoping for a joyful homecoming while acknowledging that Nancy might already be gone.
We still believe in a miracle. We still believe that she can come home. We also know that she may be lost. She may already be gone. She may have already gone home to the Lord that she loves. If this is what is to be, then we will accept it. But we need to know where she is. We need her to come home. For that reason, we are offering a family reward of up to $1 million for any information that leads us to her recovery.
NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has the latest on the investigation from Tucson. Liz, good morning.
Well, hi, Joe. Good morning to you. Yeah, since Savannah posted that video, a law enforcement source tells NBC News that the FBI has received about 750 new leads. But experts tell us that that reward from the Guthries, that $1 million reward, is less about the quantity of tips. It's really about the quality. A source close to the family says that the family decided to offer this reward hoping that they might be able to now incentivize somebody or some of the key people that perhaps know something about this case but have been reluctant to come forward. One federal official told NBC News that money can easily sometimes break allegiances. It is not about getting another 1,000 tips. It is just about getting that one tip that they need to crack this case open. And, you know, many people may be asking, why is the family offering this reward now? That source close to the family said that the Guthries, from the very beginning, day one of this investigation, have been open to offering a reward, but they were advised by all the people involved that it was best to hold off, that doing so early on in the investigation can overwhelm the infrastructure of being able to receive tips in the field. As it is, we know that tens of thousands of tips poured in organically to the point where the 911 call center here in the county had to staff up an additional 4 people a shift. And so there were plenty of tips coming in initially. The past few days have felt a little bit slower. That's not to say that a lot of work isn't being done behind the scenes by investigators. It absolutely is, as they continue to work the other leads. But now, 3.5 weeks into this, the hope is that this reward will help just jumpstart maybe a few more leads, those leads that they really, really need. Again, investigators continue to work different leads when it comes to the Walmart backpack and when it comes to that mixture DNA found at the home. Right now, the Sheriff's Department still says that DNA is being processed, and so we continue to wait now 25 days into this search. Joe?
All right, Liz Kreutz, thank you. For more, let's bring in former FBI hostage negotiator and CEO of the Convincing Company, Chip Massey. Chip, good to have you with us again. As we just heard there, a source close to the Guthrie family says they did bring up the idea of offering that private reward early on in the investigation. Law enforcement advised them to hold off. Explain what a reward like this could do for the investigation. Does history tell us something like this can make a difference?
Oh, exactly, Joe. And Liz's reporting is spot on, because all we need is one person. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. This reward creates that sense of shaking somebody loose. So, for example, when it started at $100K and then the FBI offered another $100K, $200K, that's a lot of money. $1 million. Now that person has a million reasons to step forward, and we just need that one person. If you think about it in the context of that circle, and this doesn't even have to be, Joe, somebody that's on the inner circle. It could be somebody that's associated with this individual. And they're thinking in their mind, one of the things that we teach is forensic listening. That's the art and science of understanding a conversation after it's happened, because we know that words leave clues. And in this instance, the person that's on his inner circle or close to it, they're replaying conversations in their mind. They're replaying maybe slights against them. And if they're not sure that this is the guy that they see on the video, they're going to start to make these connections. They're going to pull forward those subconscious thoughts, those ideas of who this guy is. So if it's somebody on the inside or close to them, that's going to cause a fraction. Tensions are high. People are running hot here. And there is so much pressure on this, which is exactly what we want. But just like Savannah said in that video, Joe, is that she needs this person to step forward now. That one person, that one quality person that's going to do the right thing and give that information.
You keep saying somebody knows something. The key is for that somebody to say something. So, Chip, at this point, authorities say all the DNA evidence recovered from the Guthrie home and related search areas, that's all now been submitted for forensic analysis. So where do investigators look next after the physical crime scene is fully searched?
Right, Joe, exactly. So as we heard from Liz's reporting, they're still doing the job, right? We don't see them work. And I love that, because that's how the FBI, that's how law enforcement goes. We do the work behind the scenes, but they're still actively following up on the leads. We know from those gun shop owner interviews that we talked about a while ago, they've come in with names to these gun shop owners, actual names. And they're asking them, have you sold this weapon to this individual? How about this holster, this brand, make, and model? So I have full confidence that right now they're working with a universe of names. I don't know how large or small that is, but those lanes of that highway, those evidence, so whether it's the DNA, whether it's these continued investigations of talking to people, knocking on doors, going to these gun shops and wherever else this is lead them, they are doing the work and it will yield results.
All right, Chip Massey, good to have your expertise as always. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Here in the Northeast, more snow is on the way just a couple days after that record-breaking blizzard. The powerful nor'easter dropped more than 3 feet of snow on some areas earlier this week. Thousands more flights were canceled on Tuesday as major cities struggle to get back up and running. Well, thousands of homes and businesses in Massachusetts are still waiting for power to be restored. A new storm could complicate the cleanup. Our NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda is following it all from New Jersey.
Toppled trees and downed power lines across the Northeast, where hundreds of thousands remain without power after a devastating blizzard left millions under multiple feet of snow. New threat coming from a temporary thaw. Watch how melting ice and snow plummet from this skyscraper in Boston, hitting the ground below with a dramatic thud. Along Massachusetts coast, home after home frozen over, snow disguising entryways, school buses and cars totally covered. And look at this gas station canopy that collapsed. The NYPD says they're now investigating videos like this one showing snowballs thrown at police officers who were then transported to the hospital with injuries to the head, face, and neck area. The city's mayor reacting.
They and our entire city workforce deserve to be treated with respect.
Police now looking for these two men. At least 39 places were blanketed by more than 30 inches of snow. These roads in Rhode Island still impassable. WJAR's Molly Levine is there.
Here in Providence, residents spent the day digging out from their driveway after this record-breaking storm dumped over 30 inches on the city. But what good is that when the snow is up to your knees and many of the streets are untouched? It's not just the rush to clear roads in the Northeast, but also to restore power to hundreds of thousands in these freezing temperatures.
Officials in Maryland, which faced high winds, confirmed 2 people died when a tree fell on their car Sunday. Crews now clearing railroads and airlines racing to recover from more than 11,000 flight cancellations since Sunday. The terminals in Boston eerily quiet.
Drivers will find some roads are still messy, but an emerging risk, a big concern, is actually what you can't see. With temperatures dropping into the teens, the melting snow and this slush as I trudge through it here, this could turn to black ice. Back to you.
All right, Emily, thank you. Let's bring in meteorologist Angie Lastman. I think I saw a shot outside our window here. It looks like there's some snow falling right now.
Indeed, Joe, you're exactly right. We've got a system that's kind of working across parts of the Northeast today, and that is going to leave us with a bit of a commute difficulty when it comes to the I-95 corridor this morning. Now, nothing like what we saw a couple of days ago, but still, nonetheless, as Emily mentioned, could create some slick spots. You can see that stronger band kind of working through New York City and stretching down through Atlantic City and farther north up into portions of Massachusetts and Connecticut. Now, this is going to be a quick mover, but it is going to give us maybe an inch or so for the more widespread areas. And then you look up to the Tug Hill Plateau and you can see anywhere from 4 to 6 inches. Some of those higher elevations will pick up some multiple inches of snow as well. But places like New York City expecting about an inch or so. And it's going to be a quick mover with most of this kind of wrapped up as far as the snow is concerned across this region by the time we get to noon. You can see this kind of quick moving clipper system that's sliding through. And then by later today, it's the Tennessee Valley that we're looking at for the precipitation. That, of course, will come in the form of rain, but we'll see mainly just some of these lighter scattered showers kind of lingering across parts of the Northeast into the afternoon and evening hours tonight. It's the morning commute, though, that could be a bit difficult. We'll still be looking at rain here as we get into tomorrow across parts of the Southeast. So we'll keep mainly quiet conditions across the Northeast. So we'll have a little bit of a break from that. But then looking ahead, we've got a couple things to note as we get into next week. We've got warmer than average conditions for most of the country. Really, the only spots that are looking at colder than typical temperatures is going to be parts of the Great Lakes and the Northeast. We'll keep that stubborn kind of cold pattern. But then we'll see this storm track where we could see multiple clipper systems kind of sliding through that same region. So there is a possibility that we once again could see the chance for some significant snow as we get into late Sunday and Monday. This, of course, will be something that we'll watch to slow us down. And meanwhile, we've got to check on our friends across the state of Florida because we've got freeze alerts for folks there stretching into southern Georgia. 8 million people waking up to chilly conditions. It's the 30s in Daytona Beach, Orlando, Tallahassee, Joe. Chilly conditions for our friends there. Otherwise, it's the snow that we're focusing on across the Northeast.
At least they don't have snow.
Exactly.
Look at the bright side. All right, thanks, Angie. Appreciate it. More to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, another plot twist in the bidding battle for Warner Brothers Discovery. The new offer from Paramount that could edge out Netflix. Up first after the break, President Trump talking foreign policy in his historic State of the Union address. From the war in Ukraine to nuclear negotiations with Iran, we're going to have international reaction next. We're back with more on President Trump's State of the Union address, this time with a focus on foreign policy. The threat of a U.S. attack on Iran has heightened over the past few weeks after the U.S. built up its largest military presence in the Middle East since the invasion of Iraq back in 2003. But Iranian and American officials are set for another round of nuclear talks in Geneva tomorrow, an attempt to avert a possible conflict. NBC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now with more on this. Keir, I know you were watching the speech last night. Many people across the region looking for clues as to what the president might be planning for Iran, given this massive military buildup. What did we learn? Anything new from the president last night? What was the message?
Yeah, I think there was something new. Foreign policy was only a small part of the speech that, as you have been talking about, mostly focused on the economy. But what I think we did do was hear President Trump begin to lay out why he might make the decision to strike Iran. He said that Iran is trying to or planning to build weapons that will soon reach the United States of America. Now, he's talking, I think, about intercontinental ballistic missiles. Whether or not soon is an accurate description, the Defense Intelligence Agency has said that Iran could have 60 ICBMs by 2035. But I think the important thing here is that President Trump is shifting to try to explain to the American people why he may take action in this region. At the same time, he has those negotiations set to resume in Geneva on Thursday with Iran, and he did say that he still is looking for some kind of negotiated agreement.
Make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy.
So this problem through diplomacy, Joe. I mean, the question of Iran's nuclear program is another aspect where there is deep mistrust. The U.S. saying that Iran should not have any capability to build a nuclear weapon. Iran saying, well, it is enriching uranium, but only wants a civil program. There's a lot of complexity to it, but ultimately, I think what we saw last night was President Trump indicate that the clock is ticking, frankly.
So, Keir, how are the Iranians reacting to the president's comments, and what are we hearing from Iran's foreign minister ahead of those talks in Geneva tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, they described what President Trump had to say as big lies. I mean, that is inevitable from the Iranians. As I mentioned, we still do have these negotiations, and we have heard from the foreign minister, Araghchi, before President Trump's speech, where he has said, our fundamental convictions are crystal clear. Iran will under no circumstances ever develop a nuclear weapon, and neither will we Iranians ever forego our right to harness the dividends of peaceful nuclear technology for our people. So there you have Araghchi kind of balancing between trying to say, well, we don't want a nuclear weapon, at the same time not prepared to agree to, for example, a demand of zero enrichment.
And Keir, other than Iran, I mean, the president's speech was pretty light on foreign policy. He didn't mention chief economic rival China or Greenland, the Danish territory that he had threatened to take over. He did briefly touch on the Russia-Ukraine war, saying he was working hard to end it. Real quick here, what did he have to say about that? How's that going over in Ukraine?
To be honest, I don't think the Ukrainians will be surprised after the years that they have had and really, honestly, the back and forth that there's been, hasn't there, with the Trump administration. Notable that President Trump didn't mention that it was the 4-year anniversary of the Ukraine war, and I think that's partly because he's actually really struggled to try to bring peace to that region. Joe.
Appreciate your reporting here. Thank you so much. Closer to home, the families of 9 Camp Mystic campers are suing Texas for allowing the camp to operate despite lacking a required evacuation plan. Last summer, 27 campers and counselors were killed after raging floodwaters swept through the camp on July 4th. The lawsuit targets the state's Department of State Health Services and some of its officials. It claims that the lack of an evacuation plan caused camp staff to panic as floodwaters rose. A spokesperson for DSHS says it does not comment on pending litigation. Now, in a letter, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick urged the state agency not to issue a 2026 license to Camp Mystic. In a statement, the camp says it plans to reopen this summer at a new location on Cypress Lake, adding there is no regulatory basis to deny its new license. For more on this, I'm joined now by NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris. Misty, good to have you with us. So, I mean, this lawsuit was filed in federal court earlier this week. It named 6 Texas state health officials who oversee the youth camp program, and Camp Mystic's inspector. It doesn't name the camp itself. What's the core legal argument the families are making?
So, yeah, so this is a different legal argument than we've seen with many of the lawsuits that have come out of Camp Mystic. So this is based on Section 1983, which is a federal statute that allows for a plaintiff to bring a lawsuit against a government employee or a government entity when there was a deprivation of civil rights, deprivation of a constitutional right. Here, the allegation is that they were the campers that are deceased, their families are now seeking redress, that they were denied substantive due process. And the crux of the argument is that these officials, the 6 officials who are defendants, allowed the camp to continue to operate without complying with the state law, which included an evacuation plan. So these individuals are alleged to have direct involvement in that, which resulted in the death of these 9 campers.
The suit claims that an inspector actually visited the camp just 2 days before the flood, confirmed it had a written disaster plan, also alleges that emergency guidance was to stay inside, even though the cabins were in designated flood zones along the river. Based on what's filed here, what you've seen, how strong do you think this case is?
So on its face, it seems like this is going to be one that's going to go through the litigation process. It's important to note that there are extra protections written into the law when you sue a state or you sue somebody who is an employee of the state acting in their official capacity. There's what's called qualified immunity. It generally shields those individuals from civil liability. But the analysis is whether or not they acted with deliberate indifference. That means there was a known risk and they basically ignored it, and they knew that that could cause significant harm and damage. So the defense actually in this case could be different with respect to these 6 individuals, depending on the role that they played in accordance with issuing these licenses. Now, keep in mind, another defense will be that this was an unprecedented disaster. So this is going to play out in the litigation process.
Texas lawmakers are expected to have hearings on this spring. Real quick here, I would have to imagine anything someone says in a public hearing could be used in this case or could prompt other cases to follow, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a horrific tragedy, and what those investigations are going to conclude, ultimately, there'll be a report which says what went wrong and why, what could have been done better, where the laws were potentially violated. So the outcome of those investigations and ultimate conclusions could impact not just this civil case we're talking about today, but all of the pending cases and potentially spur new litigation.
All right, Misty Maris, appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much. Coming up, renewed concerns about the dangers of microplastics after researchers discover higher levels of the tiny plastic particles in tumor tissue. Dr. Azar is in for our weekly checkup next. You're watching Morning News Now. Back now with our weekly medical checkup. This week we're taking a look at the rise of heart disease among women, plus how bird watching can boost your brain health. Here to break down these health headlines, NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. Let's start first with this report from the American Heart Association. By 2050, 6 in 10 women could have heart disease. What types of heart disease are we talking about here, and what are the things women can do to protect their heart health?
Yeah, so I think this is important for people to understand. The definition of cardiovascular disease encompasses a lot of things. It's heart disease itself. That means things like heart attacks, congestive heart failure, atrial fibrillation, stroke. The number, take a look at this, 60% of women are estimated that or predicted to have high blood pressure, and more than 60% of women may also have diabetes. About, certainly some older women here, but a third of women between the ages of 22 and 44 are also predicted to have high blood pressure. Obesity, things like that are also implicated in some of these numbers. My doctor's orders are know your numbers, right? We want to know what normal blood pressure is. We want to know what normal hemoglobin A1C and lipid levels, but always to remember to prioritize healthy diet, exercise, and to use medications when indicated. So much of cardiovascular disease risk, those risk factors are what we call modifiable, right? Mm-hmm. You can't change your genetics, you can't change your family history, but things like smoking, being on a statin to lower your cholesterol, GLP-1s, what I thought it was interesting that these predictions were made. Were they considering, the use of GLP-1s and all of these numbers? And I hope that potentially with the use of those medications, as well as all the lifestyle things, that we could actually maybe tweak some of these estimates and predictions and that they don't actually come true, because it's pretty pretty sobering statistics.
Yeah, and we've learned those GLP-1s can help heart health and just about everything else, too.
Exactly.
Well, let's get to our next study. It found that high levels of microplastics were in prostate cancer tumors. What could this mean?
So, we talk a lot about the potential that microplastics could have adverse effects on our health. This was a study that was actually done by my colleagues at NYU Langone, and they did tissue sampling, 10 men who had prostate cancer. And they looked in the prostate tumor itself, and they sampled areas that were cancerous, and they sampled normal tissue. And what they found, that there was 2.5 times the amount of microplastic in the tumor tissue as opposed to normal tissue. Really, two important things to say. The study hasn't yet been peer reviewed. However, experts have sort of commented on and said that the methodology was quite rigorous, and it's also not cause and effect, but something that, again, raises this idea that potentially microplastics could be having adverse effect on our health. So doctors' orders are, what am I going to say? Limit plastic exposure. We've talked about those kinds of changes that you can make in your everyday life. And of course, because this is about prostate cancer, it's a reminder for men to talk to their providers about when and how frequently to get screened for prostate cancer.
Regular checkups there. All right, let's end with a fun one.
Yes.
So while bird watchers were watching birds, watching their brains, and they found some cool stuff, right?
Yeah, so this is, stories like this, they always make me smile. Okay, so what is it about bird watching that could have an impact, a positive impact on our brains? Well, they studied the brains of experienced bird watchers versus inexperienced bird watchers. And they found that the function and structure of brain areas that were involved in perception and attention and memory were much stronger in the bird watchers, suggesting that these changes, because of bird watching, could have improved or impact your cognition into old age. So my doctor's orders are, if you're not a bird watcher already, please start. But also
and get experienced at it. Get really good at it.
And they couldn't also, necessarily eliminate the effect that being in nature and walking and all of that had on it. But it's just another thing, something that involves multi-processing could impact brain resilience as we get older. Maybe it's a Sudoku. Maybe it's bird watching. But do something to keep your brain active.
And get out and walk a little bit.
And get out and walk
There
in
we go.
nature.
This was fun. Dr. Azar, thank you so much. Coming up on Morning News Now, is it deceptive by design? One major insurance company called out for what some patients are calling ghost networks.
The experience with it being so impossible, literally impossible, to find someone was, for me, less of an enraged feeling and more of like a helpless feeling.
More on the allegations and what the company has to say. Plus, the drama continues. The latest on the bidding battle over Warner Brothers Discovery as Paramount makes a new enticing offer. Your Money Minute is next. Stay with us. We're back now with our investigative series, The Cost of Denial, which focuses on the challenge many Americans face with their insurance companies. This time, we're taking a closer look at so-called ghost networks. A new lawsuit against the insurance company Emblem Health accuses the company of providing patients a list of mental health providers who they can't actually get an appointment with. NBC's senior national correspondent, News Now anchor Kate Snow has the details.
Hey there, this is an issue that's gotten a lot of attention before. Maybe viewers have even experienced this, where you have insurance, you have a mental health crisis, you see a list of providers from your insurance company, but when you actually go to look for one of those therapists or psychologists, they're not actually taking patients.
Val Calderon and her partner Chris Russell are special ed teachers in New York City. In 2024, pregnant with their first child, Val had a difficult miscarriage that took an enormous toll on her mental health.
I'm in this dark tunnel and I don't know if I can pull myself out of it. And I'm scared.
You thought you should see a doctor.
I had to. I knew I had to, for my safety, for my well-being, for my life.
She says she felt severely depressed and called at least a dozen doctors and therapists listed by her insurance, Emblem Health.
I was hearing, yes, we're a network, we have a wait list, and also, no, we're not a network.
Not a network at all?
Yeah.
The experience with it being so impossible, literally impossible, to find someone was, for me, less of an enraged feeling and more of like a helpless feeling. Like, what do we even do?
It's known as a ghost network. Val showed us email replies.
I'm not taking on new patients. Unfortunately, I am not in network.
Eventually, Val just gave up.
I said to Chris, I need to get back to things in my life that I know brought me joy, because it's like literally the only thing that I think I have now. I'm so sorry.
A few months later, Val got pregnant again and had a beautiful baby girl, but postpartum depression took hold.
It was like, I can't live like this anymore. I need help.
They decided to pay more than $600 a month for an out-of-network therapist, far more than the $15 copay per session they would pay through insurance. Now, Val is part of a class-action lawsuit against Emblem Health. It alleges the company artificially inflates its mental health provider network and illegally profits from its ghost network. Sarah Haviva Mark is Val's lawyer and says it's all done by design.
The more providers that are listed, the more people that will choose a plan, the more premiums. The more money they make.
The American Psychiatric Association is also part of the lawsuit. APA CEO and medical director Dr. Marquita Wills says doctors struggle when they're incorrectly listed as in-network.
We've heard stories from our members, psychiatrists, who have called Emblem specifically, trying their best to get out of these directories. They call, they get rerouted, they're asked to fill out paperwork. They still can't get out of the directory.
Emblem Health tells NBC News we do not comment on pending litigation. Val still feels like her mental health is a work in progress, but says she's in a better place.
This is really not even about me. This is about thousands of people that are being harmed daily.
She hopes her litigation might make it easier when someone else desperately needs help.
There was actually just a settlement between Emblem Health and the New York State Attorney General's office. That office had been looking into this very issue about ghost networks. Emblem agreeing to pay a $2.5 million fine and restitution to anyone in their network who had to pay out of pocket the way that Val had to pay. Emblem saying it agreed to pay in order to avoid the time and expense of litigation, and told NBC News that it is expanding its network of providers. Back to you.
All right, Kate, thank you. Some money news now. A sweeter offer from Paramount shaking up Warner Brothers' sale, challenging Netflix's bid. NBC News business and economy reporter Allie Canal is here with your Money Minute. Good morning, Allie.
Good morning, Joe. Yeah, yet another twist in this ongoing media saga. Warner Brothers Discovery now says a sweetened offer from Paramount Skydance, valuing the entire company at about $77 billion, could be superior to Netflix's deal. Paramount is now offering $31 a share to buy all of WBD, while Netflix's bid at just under $28 a share covers only the studio and streaming assets. Now, the board hasn't chosen yet, and Netflix will have the opportunity to counter if WBD determines the Paramount deal is the better one. So as they say in the biz, stay tuned. Certainly more to come there. And moving on to a recall alert. Ford is recalling more than 412,000 2017 to 2019 Explorer vehicles over a rear suspension issue. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says the faulty part can fracture, potentially causing a loss of steering control and increasing crash risk. Repairs will be free, and drivers can check out the NHTSA's website for details. NBC News has reached out to Ford for comments. And a burger fit for a king, or maybe an arch. McDonald's is rolling out what it says is its biggest burger yet. Starting March 3rd, diners can purchase the Big Arch Burger, which features 2 quarter-pound patties, all those classic burger toppings, and of course, a new signature sauce. Meanwhile, Burger King brought back its Maple Bourbon BBQ Whopper as the fast food giants turn up the heat on limited time menu offerings. And Joe, we know this has been key to getting customers back to stores, but 2 quarter-pound patties, I mean...
Not small offerings.
not a small offering. You got to be pretty hungry to be getting that.
All right, Allie, thank you so much. Coming up here in Morning News Now, American heroes going from the front lines to center stage.
Going through ASAP is really a sense of purpose, but also a community. The community I was missing.
Next, we're pulling back the curtain on a new arts program meant to help veterans readjust to life after service. We'll be right back. We end this hour with a program in Washington, D.C. that helps veterans adjust to life after returning home. It's part of the Armed Services Arts Partnership, where service members learn the art of stand-up comedy to overcome the trauma of war. NBC New York's Dave Price spoke with some students about what the program means to them.
It's 11 a.m., not exactly prime time for comedy. But one group of comics is heading into this performance space in Southeast Washington, D.C. They aren't here to audition, though. They've already been on the toughest stages anywhere, serving their country in uniform.
I was in the Army for 23 years, retired as a major.
I was in the Army for 14 years. I was a helicopter pilot.
I am a combat veteran, and I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I was shot 5 times. The scars aren't so bad. A lot of it is the stuff that you actually don't see.
Today, the pain of war is dulled by laughter.
Sorry, Nick.
These men and women are all part of the Armed Services Arts Partnership, a nonprofit program established in 2015 using the arts to help veterans adjust to life beyond the uniform.
They encourage that we do the classroom work. We go home on our own. We write, we draw, we do whatever. We're in our process. And then we come back. And then we create friendships.
The goal is not simply developing a new skill or a burgeoning career in the arts, but rediscovering confidence, purpose, and a sense of community. Brian Jenkins is ASAP's Chief Executive Officer.
The root of how ASAP operates is through free deep dive classes into all these different forms of art. But the magic of ASAP is what happens beyond those classes. It can turn into just a hobby. It could turn into lifelong friendships. It can sometimes turn into a career.
Could that be a vein that I could explore?
That could be.
These students are here to learn comedy. For some, it's a simple creative outlet. For others, it helps heal the traumas that came with service to their country.
It's hard to transition out where you come from this very structured environment. You get told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and then you kind of get left out there and say, thank you for your service, but go figure out life for yourself. And that's hard.
ASAP has served over 3,000 veterans this past year alone in stand-up, writing, and art as well, doubling its footprint in the last 12 months with programs in 6 cities across the country. It has now caught the attention of Bob Hope's daughter, Linda, and the Hope Foundation, who've just provided a $500,000 grant to expand the programs. Some of these comics are even returning to the front lines, following Bob Hope's footsteps and reinforcing his legacy in places where they once served, bringing a laugh to where it's needed most.
Whatever you wanted to be.
P.T. Bratton is an Air Force veteran and an alum of the program. He now works full-time as a stand-up comedian and just performed at a base in the Middle East during the New Year's holiday. This was his first time back.
I see myself as still serving. I signed up to serve in the military, and I'm serving again.
To start in one of our comedy classes after they serve in the military, and then to go back abroad and to perform for other service members is a wild full circle moment.
What I got out of going through ASAP is really a sense of purpose, but also a community. The community I was missing.
Comedy, community, and hope. A powerful ensemble.
Our thanks to Dave Price for that story. All ASAP classes are free and available to veterans, service members, military family members, and caregivers. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stay with us. The news continues right now. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off. Right now on Morning News Now, a night of cheers and jeers in Washington. President Trump delivering a heated State of the Union address before a Congress divided. The commander-in-chief met with roaring applause and praise from his colleagues on the right, while facing fiery protests from some on the left. Democratic Congressman Al Green ejected for a second straight year, this time after brandishing a sign that read, "Black people aren't apes." Mr. Trump's sprawling, nearly 2-hour-long speech touching on hot-button issues like tariffs, Iran, immigration, and a nation uneasy over its bottom line.
You've seen nothing yet. We're going to do better and better and better. This is the golden age of America.
We'll bring you all the highlights from last night's speech, including reaction from the other side of the aisle. Also this morning, a desperate new plea from Savannah Guthrie as the ongoing search for her mother, Nancy Guthrie, enters day 25. The $1 million reward now being offered by her family as investigators in Arizona comb through hundreds of new tips in their hunt for answers. Plus, 1-2 punch, another round of snow on tap for millions across the Northeast this morning, just as snowed-in cities like Boston and New York scramble to dig out from this week's monster blizzard. Our Angie Lassman tracking it all with how much snow you can expect when you head out the door. And later in the hour, what's gold is new again. We're digging into some of the smartest ways you can cash in on gold's record Wall Street run. Turns out you don't exactly need a medal from Milan to bring home a check that might be just as precious in 2026. Let's begin this hour with President Trump's State of the Union address. His record-long speech was heavy on patriotism as the president claimed he was ushering in a golden age of America. President Trump praised his administration's handling of the economy and immigration, but several misleading comments and outright false claims were issued. The president also harshly rebuked Democrats and the previous administration, blaming them for some of the country's problems. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Hake joins us from the White House with more details. Garrett, good morning.
President Trump broke his own record last night in delivering that longest State of the Union speech in history. Overall, the speech seemed designed as a patriotic pep talk, with the president boasting about his economic record and highlighting the service and achievement of American warriors and champions. But he also lashed out at Democrats repeatedly on immigration and other issues, creating some tense moments and stark reminders of our polarized union.
President Trump entering the House chamber with a roar from Republicans and silence and empty seats on the Democratic side for the first State of the Union of his second term.
Our nation is back, bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before.
The president using his nearly 2-hour speech to highlight successes of his first year, touting falling gas prices and a rising stock market.
A short time ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world.
With 4 Supreme Court justices sitting just feet away, the president briefly criticizing the court's ruling against his sweeping tariff program, days after calling some of the justices, quote, disloyal to the Constitution.
An unfortunate ruling from the United States Supreme Court.
But vowing to move ahead with new tariffs, the bulk of which will be paid by U.S. companies.
I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax.
The president repeatedly taking swipes at Democrats.
These people are crazy.
And trying to put them on defense over affordability.
They just used it. Somebody gave it to them, knowing full well that they caused and created the increased prices.
The president also focusing on immigration, even attempting to goad Democrats into standing up and clapping.
To agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up.
The official Democratic response coming from newly elected Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger.
The president did what he always does. He lied, he scapegoated, and he distracted.
The president also pushing foreign policy late in his remarks, saying he preferred a diplomatic solution to the ongoing standoff with Iran, but will not allow the regime to acquire a nuclear weapon.
They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon.
The biggest bipartisan cheers of the night coming for the gold medal winning U.S. Olympic hockey team.
Here with us tonight is a group of winners who just made the entire nation proud. The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team.
Mr. Trump adding that he plans to present goalie Connor Hellebuck with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and later awarding 2 medals of honor to military aviators of different eras. A helicopter pilot wounded in the recent raid to capture Nicolas Maduro, and a Korean War fighter pilot.
Viewers may have noticed 2 moments of disruption during the speech, with one Democrat escorted out of the chamber early after unfurling a sign on the House floor, and that exchange about immigration that led to a brief but heated back and forth between the president and several Democratic lawmakers. But most of the protest against the president inside the chamber was the silent kind, with dozens of Democrats skipping the speech entirely or inviting guests like survivors of abuse by Jeffrey Epstein, meant to send a message just by showing up.
All right, Garrett, thank you. For a fact check of President Trump's address, let's bring in NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans. Christine, good to have you with us. I know you were up late last night. So throughout the night, President Trump praised his handling of the economy. Not all of his statements were true. Let's listen to some of his comments on inflation. We'll talk on the other side.
The Biden administration and its allies in Congress gave us the worst inflation in the history of our country. But in 12 months, my administration has driven core inflation down to the lowest level in more than 5 years. And in the last 3 months of 2025, it was down to 1.7%.
All right. So, Christine, numbers are fun. You can do all sorts of things with them and fit them into 1 month or 1 year or 3 months. So help put that into context for us when it comes to that number.
Well, let's start with his claim. He always says this, that it was record inflation under the Biden administration, and that is just not true. It is provably not true. You had record inflation back in the 80s. It was 14, 15% in the 1980s. It was just shy of 9% in 2022 when the U.S. economy reopened after COVID. And then it had improved dramatically. By the end of the Biden administration, you had CPI, the Consumer Price Index, got below 3%. And then now here in the Trump administration, it had gotten down to 2.3% and then started to rise again. By the end of the year, it was 2.7%, 2.4%. I'm giving you a lot of numbers, but essentially you had dramatic improvement on the inflation story, though still higher than what the Federal Reserve would like to see. And more recently, you've got the Trump administration sort of cherry picking these numbers and looking at a very short core inflation number for the end of last year, saying they think things are on the right track.
Let's talk about what the president calls his one big beautiful bill. It's been a key and divisive tenet of his first year in office. He had this to say about it yesterday.
Last year, I urged this Congress to begin the mission by passing the largest tax cuts in American history, and our Republican majorities delivered so beautifully. We held strong, and with the great, big, beautiful bill, we gave you no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors.
So, Christine, we know tax season in full swing. I did mine yesterday. Can people expect this big break President Trump is promising? How accurate are these claims?
First of all, good for you for getting your taxes done 2 months ahead of time. Very, very smart to get that all together, especially since they're likely going to see a bigger refund this year because of so many of those new provisions from the president's one big, beautiful bill. We heard from the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, last night. Kristen Welker was asking him after the speech about those tax changes, and he says, he said almost half of returns, 40% or half of returns coming in right now, have one of these new provisions that they've applied for. So you don't necessarily have no taxes for Social Security recipients. There really is like a one-time bonus here, a $6,000 potential bonus for seniors. Depends on how much money you make. Of course, there are caveats to all these things, but there are some new provisions that many Americans will feel this tax season.
Christine, let's talk about the job market. President Trump said, quote, more Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. My understanding is that's true, in part because the population is bigger, but help us understand where the job market stands right now.
It is true on its surface, but the big story in the job market is that last year job creation ground to a halt, Joe. After about 1.5 million jobs added in the last year of the Biden administration, you had only 181,000 net new jobs last year. That is a dramatic difference that many, many economists are watching carefully. Few things there. You had tariffs. So some mid-sized companies were sort of stuck, didn't want to hire until they figured out what their costs would be. You had mass deportations. You had different Also, you had federal workers being laid off dramatically. That was on purpose. So you had just this dramatic slowdown in the job market. We'll watch to see what happens as we head into 2026. There was some signs of hope in January that job creation was picking up. But another number that is very interesting for the end of last year that the president didn't mention, you've got a record number of people who are working more than one job now. It's showing that the affordability issue is really a problem for paycheck to paycheck and low-income workers.
All right, a lot of useful context there from Christine Romans. Thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Let's get more analysis on the president's speech with Carrie Dan. She is managing editor of the Cook Political Report and a familiar face to all of us here at NBC News. Carrie, good to have you with us. I mean, this speech does come at a difficult time for the president. His approval ratings have fallen, and while recent polls show voters are trusting him less on the economy. So overall, what'd you make of this speech? Did he do what he needed to do to try and get things back on track with the midterms ahead?
Well, Jill, it was interesting to me. If you are a Republican member of Congress who is up for re-election in 2026, I'm not sure you're waking up to a wildly different reality than you were yesterday in terms of how the president talked specifically about the economy. This is an issue that he has been underwater on. And what's really interesting is in 2016, that was not his problem. When he was president, the first time around, voters always kind of gave him a pass on the economy, thinking that he was a president who understood the stock market. He was a businessman. That number has sort of turned upside down for him. I'm not sure that he really talked about affordability in the way that voters are looking for. People are feeling this lived reality of costs being very high and feeling like they're struggling to make ends meet. And this was not, he sort of celebrated the wins that he had, but didn't really talk about what he was looking for the future, how he was going to make people's lives different. I thought it was interesting. Abigail Spanberger addressed this very directly in her rebuttal, saying, is the president making your life better? And I think that's the real question to ask. And if you are going to be on a ballot in November and the president's not going to be there, I'm not sure that you got an answer as a Republican member up for re-election that is going to help you turn out voters and be inspired and make them feel like their lives are going to be really different under this administration. In addition to the economy, immigration was a huge focus. The president took credit for his crackdown. I mean, no surprise, he did not mention the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good by federal agents in Minneapolis. Even though his approval rating when it comes to the issue of immigration is dropped, he just really seemed to double down on his approach. Is that surprising given the uproar we've seen in recent weeks over this? I think what he did when he asked Democrats to stand and then called them out for not standing, and that in response to that statement about standing up for American citizens over migrants, I think that's something you're probably going to see in campaign ads. It was a act of showmanship that the president is very good at doing. And I do think that is the kind of thing that you may see come up in campaign ads. You see it already, even this early, that a lot of Republicans are running on this issue of immigration. It's also, though, a place that Democrats think that they have some momentum. You're also seeing in Democratic primaries, you are seeing Democrats go against each other about who is standing up against ICE more. This is an issue that's going to continue to evolve, but it is surprising right now to me that Republicans are a little bit more underwater than they were even during the summer of last year. All right. Carrie Dan, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. In other news now, a new reward is generating hundreds of new tips in the desperate search for Nancy Guthrie. The mother of our NBC News colleague Savannah Guthrie was abducted from her home in Tucson, Arizona 25 days ago. Yesterday, Savannah announced her family is now offering a $1 million reward for any information that leads to her return. The family is also making a $500,000 donation to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They hope it will help other families who are facing similar pain. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz is in Tucson with the latest. Liz, good morning.
Well, hey, Joe, good morning to you. After Savannah posted that video yesterday, a law enforcement source tells NBC News that they have received hundreds of new tips, but experts say it's really not about quantity right now. It is about quality. The family is hoping that by offering that reward, they might be able to incentivize somebody who has any kind of key information that they've been reluctant to share to now come forward. This morning, 25 days into the search for Nancy Guthrie, experts say the $1 million reward Savannah and her siblings are offering could encourage that one credible lead investigators desperately need.
Someone out there knows something that can bring her home. Somebody knows. And we are begging you to please come forward now.
Since Savannah posted that heartbreaking video, a senior law enforcement official tells NBC News the FBI has received more than 750 tips related to Nancy's disappearance. Former FBI supervisor Jason Pack says the family's reward suggests a strategic pivot.
But there are some people who were close to what happened, that know what happened, that now have a decision to make. And that decision was really, really ratcheted up by this reward that Savannah and her family offered.
A source close to the family says the Guthries raised the idea of a reward day one of the investigation, but were advised to hold off.
Why would the family be given that advice to wait to put out a reward?
At the beginning of these types of cases, particularly high-profile ones like this, there's not an absence of tips. So it does two things. It reactivates the tip line, and it puts a lot of pressure on those handful of people that know what happened.
Investigators are still working a variety of leads, including whether the masked suspect on Nancy's doorbell camera may have come to her home prior to the night of her abduction. 2 weeks ago, neighbors reported they were asked to check their Ring cameras for footage from the evening of January 11th. We asked the sheriff about it at the time. Why January 11th? What were investigators asking about that day in particular?
They have a reason. I don't know that, but I know that they have a valid reason for that date.
Public interest in the case shows no sign of slowing. Outside Nancy's home, a memorial growing with yellow flowers, hand-painted signs, and even mahjong tiles, one of Nancy's favorite hobbies.
And as these new leads and tips come in, a law enforcement source tells NBC News that scores of agents continue to be involved in this search for Nancy. The official noted that while some of the agents might be based now in Phoenix or Washington, D.C., they are not downsizing and continue to be very focused on this case. Back to you.
All right, Liz Kreutz, thank you. As we mentioned, the Guthrie family announced a $500,000 donation to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NCMEC. It is a private nonprofit mission that coordinates national responses when kids go missing, doing things like distributing photos and assisting with Amber Alerts. In 2024, the organization helped law enforcement, families, and child welfare professionals with nearly 30,000 reports of missing children. They say they resolved more than 90% of those cases. Yesterday, NCMEC thanked the Guthries for, quote, turning their personal heartbreak into a commitment to helping others, adding, because of their generosity, they will be able to assist more families going through some of the hardest days of their lives. Gavin Portnoy is the Vice President of Communications and Brand at the NCMEC. He joins us now. Gavin, we appreciate you talking with us about this. First, just tell us more about the kind of work your nonprofit does and why you think the Guthrie family felt it was important to give you this support at this time.
Yeah, good morning. First of all, thoughts and prayers to the family, and thank you to them again for this incredibly generous gift that they've given us. NCMEC, it's really simple what we do. We help find missing children. We fight the scourge that is child exploitation, and we try to prevent these crimes from happening in the first place. The reality of what we do every day is we could at any given time have 5,000 active cases of missing children. And I think, in their darkest hour, the Guthries realized all the attention that they were getting in the media, and also realized that they could do a lot of good to help our mission. As you mentioned, we are a nonprofit, and we can't do this critical work without the public's help. This gift will go a long way in helping us assist families that are frankly in a very similar situation where they are. They don't know where their children are. They're not able to get the wraparound therapeutic services that they may need. And they're not able to amplify their message the same way that Savannah has been able to do with her platform. So we're able to do that with these critical funds. We're able to get more photos of missing children out into the public. We're able to help our case managers assist law enforcement with getting those children home. And, the reality is We like to say every child deserves a safe childhood, and this will go a long way in helping us do that.
We heard Savannah in the video that was posted yesterday acknowledge that millions of people are experienced or have experienced the pain that her family is feeling with a missing person and so many unanswered questions. So we know that was part of the motivation for trying to donate and help your group out. What are some of the ways people who are watching at home can make a difference when it comes to this important issue?
Yeah, we like to say there's three really simple ways to get involved with our mission here. The first is help amplify the story of missing children. Every single missing child is put out on social media from NCMEC. So we encourage everyone, get involved, go to ncmec.org, ncmec.org, and you can search for missing children right within your community. Share it. I mean, the reality is photos help bring missing children home. So we encourage everyone to do that. The second is talk to the kids in your life about safety. This could be online safety. This could be real world safety. At ncmac.org, we have hundreds of free resources for families, caregivers, and children themselves, age appropriate. We encourage everyone, download it, bring it to your kids, bring it to all the children in your life. So that's second. And then last, as we mentioned, the generosity of the Guthries really did go an incredibly long way. But again, we are a nonprofit and we do need the public support to operate. So again, if you're able, we encourage you to make a donation.
All right, Gavin Portnoy, we appreciate your time this morning and appreciate everything you're doing to help families all over the country in their worst times.
Thank you so much.
All right. Millions of people in the Northeast are still digging out following this week's winter storms. The historic blizzard slammed the region with more than 3 feet of snow in some areas. Hundreds of thousands still remain without power, and surprise, there could be even more snowfall coming your way this morning. We'll get a full look at the forecast in just a moment. First, let's head out to NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda in Hoboken, New Jersey. Emily, good morning.
Hey there, Joe. Good morning to you. Well, folks here in Hoboken and across so much of the Northeast are still digging out. You can see this car behind me buried by more than 20 inches of snow, and now we are getting more of it, albeit pretty light, a short burst of snow, but it doesn't take much to create more problems, exacerbate problems when the streets and sidewalks are still messy.
This morning, a new round of snow falling, coating streets and impacting visibility from New York to Connecticut. And in Michigan, heavy snow and windy conditions. The wintry blast complicating cleanup from the historic blizzard that just barreled through the Northeast. Many homes in Rhode Island still blanketed in feet of snow on street after street, with some roads completely impassable.
This is the most snow I've ever seen in my life.
Chunks of melting ice caught on camera falling from skyscrapers in Boston. And while scenes like this are a hard part of reality in states like Massachusetts,
this just happens. So this is part of being in New England.
This storm toppling trees and snapping power lines, with more than 150,000 still without electricity in the region. Utility crews arriving from as far away as Canada to help get the lights back on across Cape Cod.
We had hurricane force winds. We had a huge dump of snow.
In New York City, the NYPD is looking for men who they say injured police officers, pelting them with snowballs when they showed up to break up a rowdy snowball fight.
They and our entire city workforce deserve to be treated with respect.
Across the Northeast, a flurry of frustration at airports, with more than 11,000 flight cancellations since Sunday. The terminals in Boston Tuesday eerily quiet. As for the chance for even more snow,
what's your reaction to that?
Just no.
So you can bet he is not going to be pleased when he steps outside his door and see the snow is falling once again. We are keeping a close eye on travel disruptions today. We are seeing some flight cancellations and delays, but at fewer than 1,000. That is a notable, significant improvement from the last couple of days, showing the airlines are getting back on track. Certainly a welcome relief for some of those passengers who have been stranded for days, Joe.
No doubt. Emily, thank you so much. As many in the Northeast are still dealing with the impacts of that winter storm, more snow is forecast today for some areas. Let's check in now with NBC meteorologist Angie Lassman. Angie, good morning.
Hi there, Joe. Good morning to you. Waking up to a couple of those flurries. Let me just say, it's not going to be anything like what we saw with the previous storm, but it could create a bit of slick conditions for that early morning commute. So here's what we've got going on right now. You can see anywhere from Atlantic City up through New York City, Hartford, Boston, getting some of those flakes flying. This is going to be out of the picture here before you know it, but we do still have a couple of those advisories that are up for now as we gear up for maybe 1 inch to 2 inches closer to the coast. You can see those higher amounts, coastal Maine, potentially up to 3, even 4 inches in the higher elevations. Tug Hill Plateau has the potential to get up to 6 inches. So nothing compared to what we previously dealt with that last storm, but still, again, slowing you down this early morning. We're going to see it kind of wrap up here when it comes to the snow by midday for basically everybody. Maybe we'll see some lingering kind of snow, some scattered snow showers across parts of the Northeast, but then we'll turn our attention to some of that afternoon rain that develops across the Tennessee Valley. And then ultimately, we keep the rain in the forecast across parts of the Southeast as we get into tomorrow. And looking ahead as we get closer to the weekend, here's the details for our Friday. A lot of the country dry. We'll see those rain and storms kind of stick with us across the Southeast to wrap up our work week. And then as we get into Saturday, we've got sunny and nice conditions for the Northeast. So keeping it quiet for that region, much deserved break. And then we've got plenty of sunshine across the midsection of the country too, and record heat out west. But notice more cold air starting to spill into the Midwest and the Great Lakes as we get into the end of our weekend. And we potentially could see some accumulating snow. So what that means is as we look ahead to next week, we've got warmer than normal temperatures for most of the country, except the Great Lakes in the Northeast. We keep that stubborn kind of cold pattern in place. And that means that we've got kind of a storm track that is going to leave us with the potential to see multiple clipper systems kind of sliding through. And that, again, will bring us the potential for some significant snow. We're looking at the timeline, Joe, possibly late Sunday into Monday. Winter holding on, especially for the Great Lakes in the Northeast. The rest of the country, though, looks pretty good.
Good for them. A reminder,
next
week is March. March. Although I do remember in Minnesota, late March, shoveling the tennis courts before we played. So, you know,
especially in the Great Lakes, the Midwest, you can have snow all the way through April at times. I too remember Michigan.
Hopefully not this year.
Yeah,
all right.
Knock on wood.
Thank you, Angie. Appreciate it. Much more to come here on this hour of Morning News Now, including the latest monkey wrench thrown into Netflix blockbuster bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Is Paramount really back in the race to scoop up the media behemoth? First, after the break, a sigh of relief for American tourists in Mexico. That shelter-in-place order, sparked by a rash of recent cartel violence, has now been lifted. But as visitors head back stateside, will life for the folks who live there return to normal? We've got the latest next. We're back now with the ongoing fallout from the Mexican military killing notorious cartel leader El Mencho. After days of retaliatory cartel violence across Mexico, the U.S. Embassy yesterday said American citizens in the country are no longer urged to shelter in place. While Americans head home and flight schedules return to normal, a sense of unease still remains for those left behind. Keep in mind, just a few months from now, Mexico will host matches for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. NBC News correspondent George Solis has been monitoring the fallout, joins us now from Miami with more. George, good morning. I know you spoke to several Americans who were stranded in Mexico after the killing of El Mencho. How has the situation changed over the last 24 hours or so from this initial wave of cartel violence over the weekend?
Yeah, good morning, Joe. So it is sort of a mixed bag, and you set it up nicely. I mean, there's obviously the look ahead to the summer with the World Cup. The capital city there in Guadalajara is going to host a few games there. So there is that big question about, can this violence be contained, especially if there's any cartel infighting? As far as those tourists that I've been speaking with, well, many of them are happy that things are slowly returning back to normal. I mean, you've had advisories from both the U.S. and on the Mexican side saying things that are reopening. They are slowly transitioning back to normal. Those road blockades that were there from the weekend slowly starting to open up again. Some of those flights that were canceled or diverted, again, now back on track there. And we're seeing signs of life back in some of these tourist hotspots. Gyms open, restaurants open, people back on the beach. So it's obviously been a whirlwind for a lot of those people who are sort of caught in this wave of drug cartel violence. But what happens from here remains to be seen, especially in the days ahead. I mean, will the cartels begin to ramp up? Is there going to be an escalation? These are all very important questions. But for the moment, things seem to be at ease there, Joe.
George, looking back here, what are we learning about why the Mexican military targeted El Mencho, and do we know if the U.S. played any role in the operation?
Yeah, so this was a very notorious drug cartel that had really grown there within the last decade or so. El Mencho wanted, as the kingpin of this organization, known for drug trafficking, fentanyl specifically, as well as human trafficking. The U.S. wanted him, the Mexican government wanted him, and this operation occurred, we know now, from the White House saying that the U.S. provided intelligence. But Mexico is saying this was strictly their operation, using even a romantic partner of his to ultimately find him, and his capture, which led to a shootout and eventually his death, Joe.
Let's talk about the World Cup here, as we mentioned. How might this violence from the past weekend impact safety and security, but also just economic plans? Maybe there's fears some people won't show up after seeing what happened here.
Yeah, it's a great point. And Mexico's president yesterday in her address saying they were all guarantees that everything would be safe there for the World Cup, because that is the big question. A lot of people have concerns about traveling for these matches now, especially in the wake of what they saw. And as I mentioned, there's a number of matches that are going to be played across Mexico. But the president, again, assuring that things are on schedule. We are out to FIFA to see if there's any comment there about their response to all of it. But again, for the moment, everything seems to be going as planned. Joe?
George Solis, thank you so much. Turning now to a family tragedy for comedy legend Martin Short. His daughter, Catherine, passed away earlier this week. She was just 42 years old. Catherine was the eldest of Martin Short's 3 children. He adopted them with his late wife, Nancy Dolman. His daughter's death is the latest hardship for Short, who over the years has become all too familiar with loss and grief. Martin Short and his family are dealing with a devastating loss this morning. They announced the passing of Catherine Hartley Short, the comedian's only daughter, writing, "Catherine was beloved by all and will be remembered for the light and joy she brought into the world."
Hi, Catherine. Happy birthday.
Well, Catherine Short did occasionally join her famous father on the red carpet, like attending a Vanity Fair Oscar party with him in 2011. She lived a relatively private life. Short praised her accomplishments during an appearance on Today.
Catherine is graduated at NYU. She did her master's at USC in social work.
The 42-year-old was found dead from a suspected suicide at her home in the Hollywood Hills after a welfare check, police sources tell our NBC Los Angeles station.
Self-inflicted, RP is there with the patient.
It's the latest tragedy for Martin Short, whose wife of 30 years passed away in 2010 following a battle with ovarian cancer. Short also lost his parents at a young age, speaking about that with us in 2014.
At 20, I had lost 3 members of my family, and yet I had to figure it out, how to be happy, because my natural orientation was to be happy. Yeah. And then at 60, the same thing.
Despite those setbacks, Short has managed to find incredible success both in his personal and professional life, spending time on and off screen lately with friend Meryl Streep.
Wow, you look great in orange.
Who joined Short on the hit show Only Murders in the Building in 2023. The series also stars Selena Gomez and Short's longtime friend and comedic partner, Steve Martin. And along with their TV show, Martin Short and Steve Martin also have a comedy tour that just started a new run in January. The pair scheduled to perform this Friday in Milwaukee, but understandably the venue announced that has now been postponed. If you or someone you know might be struggling or experiencing issues related to mental health, a reminder, you can always call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 or go online at 988lifeline.org. Coming up, it is a different kind of military push with consequences thousands of miles from Washington. After the break, why some top lawmakers are worried about troop training up in the Alaskan Arctic as temperatures there climb higher with each passing year. That is next on Morning News Now.
Good morning, Joe. The House of Representatives voted down that aviation bill on Monday that would have made airspace over Washington, D.C. safer a year after that deadly crash that killed 67 people above the Potomac River. The Rotorcraft Operations Transparency and Oversight Reform, or Rotor Act, would establish new requirements for aircraft and helicopters to use what's essentially a special GPS that broadcasts an aircraft's location to every other aircraft in the area. The legislation failed in the House 264 to 133, even though it passed in the Senate in December and had the Pentagon's support until earlier this week. The Trump administration has filed a lawsuit against the state of New Jersey over an executive order signed by Governor Mikey Sherrill that prohibits federal immigration agents from making arrests in non-public areas of state property, like correctional facilities and courthouses. The Justice Department is accusing Sherrill of harboring criminal offenders from law enforcement. Sherrill's responding by suggesting the Trump administration should better train their ICE agents. And finally, a federal magistrate judge here in Washington has rescinded the Trump administration's ability to examine data seized from Washington Post reporter Hannah Nathanson last month, saying he'll be conducting an independent review of material that was obtained through a search warrant related to the potential possession of classified material. The judge was particularly frustrated that the DOJ didn't fully explain the court a law that prohibits the government from searching or seizing any work product possessed by journalists unless they're a target of the investigation. And in this case, Nathanson wasn't. And if the judge said he had known about the law, he may have made a different decision. There will be a follow-up hearing in this case next week. That's what's happening in politics. Back to you.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Lawmakers in Alaska are pushing for more military training in the Arctic as warming temperatures trigger security concerns. In northern Alaska, the U.S. Army trains for survival, testing technology and their bodies in frigid conditions with temps that can drop to 40 below. Now, you'd think that might keep adversaries away from the Arctic, but now as the climate gets warmer, that's changing. NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Cubie went to Alaska to show us how U.S. soldiers train.
Here at the Yukon training area outside Fairbanks, Alaska, temperatures can plummet to 30 degrees below zero with punishing winds, relentless snow, and only a few hours of sunlight. Conditions that can humble even the toughest soldier.
Everything's harder in the Arctic because everything breaks at 40 below.
Major General John Cogbill commands the 11th Airborne Division, the Arctic Angels.
Just surviving up here is a challenge in and of itself, and so we have to train our soldiers. Make sure that they have all the cold weather training prior to coming into this environment.
A drastically different environment after the American military has spent decades fighting in the desert. Here, weapons freeze, batteries die faster, and just moving around takes much longer. The battle is one of logistics.
As soon as you cut their ability to fuel themselves or resupply themselves with food, water, ammunition, the environment just takes over.
This is a cold weather all-terrain vehicle. Soldiers call it the Cat V. It is able to blast through snow, ice, even water to get troops to the most remote locations, no matter the weather.
The soldiers tell us they're motivated by two things: their next hot meal and when they can warm up. Troops need at least 5,000 calories every day to survive. Medics check soldiers' fingers and toes for frostbite, which can quickly set in simply by grabbing a cold weapon with a bare hand. There's a saying here, high north, low tension, but that's changing. Warmer temperatures allowing potential adversaries like Russia and China to send more ships and aircraft through the Arctic and to hold joint military exercises, even at times encroaching into airspace over the waters off Alaska.
The world has changed. The threat environment has changed, and the environment itself has changed, which has allowed for threats to progress.
It's all part of why President Trump was so focused on Greenland, saying buying it or taking it over was necessary for national security. The threat of any military action there seems to be on pause as the U.S. is holding talks with Denmark over tactical outposts. Greenland's prime minister saying no thanks this weekend to the idea of the U.S. sending a hospital boat. Still, the two senators from Alaska who've expressed concern over the president's approach in Greenland say the U.S. needs to be ready for anything in the polar region.
After the Cold War, the Pentagon kind of got amnesia about the strategic importance of Alaska, but our adversaries haven't, so they're here.
We can't sit idle and say, well, just because we see a few incursions in the air, just because we see them exercising with the Chinese in the Bering Sea, we don't need to step up our game. We need to step up our game.
There's an old military saying that the enemy has a vote in any battle, but here it's Mother Nature who puts a frigid stamp on any conflict.
All right, Courtney Cubie, thank you for that report. Coming up, it's no secret the value of gold is having a banner year on Wall Street. But can you actually cash in on metal mania with unused jewelry around the house? We'll dig into some of the smartest ways to snag a little extra precious dough. That's next. We're back with a big business headline. The fight for Warner Brothers Discovery is heating back up. Paramount Skydance now raising its bid to try and buy out the media giant. $31 per share. It's a proposal that could threaten Netflix's offer. The streamer had previously agreed to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery Studio and its streaming assets. NBC News business and economy reporter Ali Canal is here to walk us through all this. So first, tell us what Paramount is offering here exactly. How big a deal is $31 a share?
Yeah, so the prior deal was $30 a share. Now we're at 31. This values WBD at $77 billion. And the board ultimately determined that this could be a superior deal to Netflix. It's still going to actively engage in those conversations. Now, as a reminder, Netflix offered just under $28 a share for only the studio side of the business, along with the streaming platform HBO Max. So these aren't necessarily apples to apples deals here. But if WBD does go with the Netflix deal, they would spin off those cable properties into a separate company. But there are other sweeteners that Paramount provided, along with the $7 billion reverse termination fee if regulators end up blocking the deal, which is a very real possibility, along with reimbursement costs if Warner does have to walk away from Netflix.
Do we have any idea how Warner Brothers Discovery is reacting to this latest offer here?
Well, hey, if you're CEO David Zaslav, I think you're smiling pretty big right now, right? He has consistently said that he wants to get the best deal for shareholders. The bidding war is effectively doing what it's meant to, getting that higher price. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery did say that they are still recommending the Netflix deal. They are encouraging shareholders to vote for the Netflix deal, but they are having those conversations with Paramount, and they did sort of hint that Paramount maybe could go even higher, that this might not be the best and final. So it's certainly upping that pressure on
And
Netflix.
there is a shareholders vote on the calendar
March
still,
20th.
right? March 20th. So Netflix, what do they do now? Is there an expectation that they would counter in some way, or they're just going to say, hey, here's our deal, we think it's pretty good, go with it?
Look, they declined to comment at this point in time. I think we will hear from them eventually. We've seen Ted Sarandos making the rounds. He was on Capitol Hill. He's been on multiple networks really advocating for this deal. And historically, if you zoom out, Netflix, they've always said they're better builders than buyers. They don't go after a lot of acquisitions. So the fact that they're doing this at all shows you that they want it. So I do think that they are going to respond at some point. And if WBD ultimately determines that Paramount has the better deal, Netflix will have 4 business days to counter and respond.
All right, Allie, thanks for walking us through it. We appreciate it. We have some good news for all you gold wearers this morning. Your old gold jewelry could be worth a pretty penny. Experts say trading in your broken or unused gold is an easy way to earn hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars instantly. And with the price of gold hitting record highs, the only treasure left to find is the best deal. NBC News chief consumer investigative correspondent, News Now anchor Vicki Nguyen has all the tips and tricks you need to strike gold. Vicki, good morning.
Hey there, gold has never been more golden, hitting a high of more than $5,000 an ounce this month alone. Now, if you have unused gold jewelry sitting in a drawer, you could be earning big bucks by selling it to a cash for gold business. But where? Should you go to a jewelry store, a pawn shop, or maybe one of those new online services? We tried all 3, and here's what we found to help you make the most of your gold.
It's the new age gold rush.
Can you guys believe that this little bag, $10,000, guys?
With gold prices nearly double what they were just a year ago, experts say now is the perfect time to trade in your unused or broken gold jewelry and earn a treasure trove of cash.
I haven't worn this in like a decade. I sold that for $2,800.
And consumers have more choices than ever. In addition to local pawn shops and jewelry stores, there are many online cash for gold websites.
But how do you get the most money for your gold? To find out, we use identical versions of this 14-karat gold chain certified by a jeweler.
We took our chain to be appraised at 3 pawn shops and 3 jewelry stores in New York City. Check out the range of offers we got at jewelry stores from $80 to $170, at pawn shops $120 to $190. The difference between the lowest and highest offers, more than double the cash.
It could be a lot of money.
Jeweler Lauren Kaminsky Goldman is known as the Gold Girl, offering consumers advice on how to get the most for their gold. She says first, know the carat count and weight of your item. Then shop around for several offers. And don't be afraid to haggle.
In some cases, when our producer turned around to leave the store, the offer doubled. Are you surprised by that?
I'm not surprised. If you know what you want, then come in strong and let them know in advance. And if you don't, then be prepared to negotiate.
So what happened when we sent our chain to popular and highly rated online sites? The 3 we tried say they provide free shipping and appraisals. And if you don't like the offer, they'll ship your gold back at no charge. So we mailed our chains to them and within 3 days got their bids. The results surprising even us. The offer from the first site was mid-pack, $125. The second site started low, $93. But when we declined, they more than doubled the offer to $200. The third site was even better. When we declined their initial offer of $135, they upped it to $208, the highest of the entire group.
The online services actually offer the most. What do you think of that? I think it really depends. Online services probably have less overhead.
Goldman says going to a brick and mortar store has different advantages.
Forming a relationship with the person who's doing the appraisal is also worth something to the consumer. And you could probably build your way to that same number.
And you might be surprised how much your gold is worth. Goldman appraised my wedding ring.
You can expect anywhere from $500 to $700.
That's amazing because I remember I bought that ring for about $300.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is that they have cash just laying in their drawers. Especially now is a great time to sell.
And for the record, I am happily keeping my wedding band. Something to remember, the online sites, they do take longer to give you appraisals than a store. And if you decline, getting your gold mailed back to you can take days. There is a risk to shipping the gold, but all the sites we used did ensure our mailed items up to a certain amount. Back to you.
All right, Vicki, thank you. Coming up as we celebrate Black History Month, we've got a special look at the vibrant renovation of a Harlem landmark. When we come back, our own Al Roker takes us behind the scenes at the legendary Apollo Theater as it undergoes a bit of a facelift that's been a long time coming. Stay with us. That is next. We end this hour with the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. Right here in New York City, nothing highlights the legacy of black culture and art like the legendary Apollo Theater. Today, co-host Al Roker went to Harlem to check out the venue's first full-scale renovation since it opened back in 1934.
The world-famous Apollo Theater stands proudly in Harlem, New York. In 1913, the building hosted a whites-only burlesque house, but reopening in 1934 as the famed Apollo, quickly becoming a bedrock of black culture. Weekly talent competitions called Amateur Night would feature then unknowns. Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, even Lauryn Hill, all teenage contestants then. Others from Duke Ellington to Gladys Knight, James Brown, D'Angelo, and her, all making it to the Apollo stage where stars are born and legends are made. Oh, wow, this is a construction site. I'm here to meet Apollo President and CEO Michelle Ebanks.
Hello,
how are you?
welcome.
Michelle, what was the vision in redoing this gem?
One, an expansion to the Apollo stages at the Victoria Theater a few doors down, and then an investment in the Apollo Theater itself. System to system, end to end. The murals with legends have been refreshed. There'll be a whole new lobby that will have a bar and cafe.
Also on deck, a new audio-visual setup, marquee technology, and full restoration on some key features. This is one of the cultural epicenters for Black history.
It's everything. This is our excellence. These are our stories.
When somebody's out on this stage and they look out, what will they see?
They will see the Apollo that they know and love, but they will see an Apollo that has been renewed.
The men and women that you see on the scaffolding behind us, this is their stage right now.
Matthew Consigli's construction company is responsible for upgrading infrastructure and modernizing the theater itself.
We take it as a privilege for us to be able to work on something like this and sort of contribute in some small way.
At work, 40 steps above, at balcony level, is Leah Beth Fishman, an artist with a golden job.
Gilding is basically the process of applying gold or any type of metal leaf onto a surface. This is the gold leaf. It's 23.75 carat. Just slowly bring it up, and the gold will kind of do the work for you.
Oh, it just kind of moved on to itself.
Exactly. And now you can just sort of tamp it in like that.
It really is very zen-like. Next stop, we're going to the top. I can touch the ceiling?
You can touch the ceiling.
Ooh. Wow. Showtime at the Apollo. Yes. Before I go, I have to meet historian Billy Mitchell, a.k.a. Mr. Apollo.
I started running errands in 1965. Came in here, saw the Temptations, Smokey and the Miracles, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas.
Stevie?
And Stevie. Stevie was 15 years old, just like I was. We're a part of American history. We're definitely a part of black culture.
Billy showing me the Tree of Hope, brought here in 1934 by amateur night creator Ralph Cooper, after it was cut down at a nearby venue.
Across from the tree was the Great Lafayette Theater, and unemployed entertainers would gather around the tree and perform, hoping that the manager from the Lafayette would offer them jobs. People thought it was giving off good luck. Ralph Cooper, he says, I'm going to bring it to the Apollo so contestants could rub it for good luck, hoping they don't get booed by the audience.
Equally famous, Apollo's Wall of Signatures.
It was created by our stage crew back in 1989. Performers, politicians, sports figures. Guess who else is up here?
Who?
Your wife.
Where?
Right here.
Oh, wow.
Deborah Roberts.
Deborah Roberts right there.
Would you mind signing your name up there, sir?
Wow.
Al Roker.
What an honor.
Congratulations,
Thank
brother.
you, sir. Al Roker, NBC News.
A great honor right there. Thank you, Al. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now, but stick with us. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.